What else have we got? Okay, so that's basic. I mean, that's a really simple material. We have a glass material. Let's copy it, and we'll put our teak stuff back on. So for the teak, we will turn down this. We will turn back on this, the teak map. We'll put that, make sure that reflection is on. So the teak map's going to be here, looking like that. Let's get a little more reflection on there. Is that even working? Yeah, okay, so a little bit of reflection on that teak. Now, we've made a basic material here. Let me show you how to apply it to the scene. And we're going to have to get way more into this because there's kind of a lot to materials. But for basic purposes, let's say that this doesn't really make a lot of sense, but for now, as for demonstration purposes, I'll show it to you this way. So let's shade that. Hit F4 to bring on the outlines. Now, let's modify this thing, or go into the modifier tab so we can get into the sub-objects. So select the polygons that should be glass. We've already got them selected there. Let's rename this material to glass. And then edit, select invert. That selects the inverse faces of what we just had, and let's make that the teak wood. Okay. Now, let's go into this map here, the teakwood JPEG, and hit this button here, Show Standard Map in Viewport. That means it's going to show up on the material. Okay, now we can go out of subobject mode. Let's change our glass so that it's not red anymore. And actually, glass really has no color for the most part. Depends on the glass, I guess, but there it is. So we're gonna make it black, and the color will come from reflection. Okay, now you see this looks like a solid color, which isn't quite right, and that's because materials have to be mapped. You have to tell them how to be applied to this object. So if you go into the the modifier stack of this window here and hit UVW map. UVW, think of that as, for materials, it's the same thing as these coordinates, X, Y, Z. For materials, it goes off of UVW coordinates. Okay, so you can see it's not looking quite right. We need to change this to a box, like that, and then we need to change. Okay, let me show you an easier way to do this. When we made our map, we left it without real world scale, and we just put it 1 to 1. So it's taking this map and it's stretching it all the way across that window from here to here one time, all the way across that window, and stretching it from the top to the bottom one time. So that might not be the right size. You'll see though our U tiles are 1, 1, 1, 1. If we change our U tiles to 5, you can see how that changes, and that actually looks closer to correct. But there's a better way to do this for architectural stuff at least. Let's use real world scale inside the bitmap now, and let's tell it the width and the height of that bitmap. So we'll say this bitmap is about 14 inches wide by 4 feet tall, okay, proportionally, something like that. So put 14 inches wide by 4 feet tall, and then in our UVW map we just say box map real world scale, and then everything's kind of the right size, at least it's close. So that's how you apply material. Now the box mapping is the easiest way to explain that is it takes that map and it projects it in the orthographic views. So picture that map sitting here, at the size we determined and being projected straight onto these faces here. And then it'll do the same thing from the top. So here the map is being projected onto these faces. So as it turns that corner, the projection is changing, obviously, from here to there, and it looks correct. And then as it goes around here, these faces are getting projected from the front, these ones from the left, and so you can change the alignment like this, which basically tells it how that map should be rotated as it's being projected onto there. And different shaped objects will need different kinds of projection or mapping. So planar just takes it from one side. You can see like that from the top here. In this case, you can change it so it's from the front or the side. Z is going to be from the front. So everything looks good from the front, but then on the sides it just takes these pixels and stretches them, because no map is getting projected properly onto those edges. So that's what planar does. Cylindrical is projecting it just like that. It's taking that map, wrapping it around a cylinder, and projecting it onto this window. That's not right for this object, obviously. Spherical is going to be just what it says, spherical. Obviously not right also. So for anything that's not really organic shaped and just boxy, you can usually use this box map. Okay, that's the simplest way to do that. Okay, so we've made some basic materials. We've put them onto an object. Now let's see. Let's unisolate everything. Okay, so because these two windows were instanced to each other, they are getting the same material on them. You can change that in your materials. You can hit options, and because propagate materials to instances is checked, then it's going to put those materials the same on both of them. The UVW map will match on both of them because they're instance. So that's where instancing really comes into play. That's a nice thing there. You can always turn that off by unchecking it. Now that we've done that too, this one object actually has two materials on it, and they're these two materials here. But you can actually get those two materials together. So if you take this pick material from object button here, this little eyedropper, and select this like that, it's showing you a different kind of material. Because when you apply materials in sub-object mode, it actually creates a new material, and it's called a multi-sub-object material. And you can see in here, multi-sub-object is just a standard kind of material. It's right here, multi-sub-object. And what it does is, so here it's creating two different materials inside the same material. That teak wood and the glass are both here. And they're instances of these two, so they're the same material, but it's combining them into one here. And these numbers here are which face IDs to apply it to. So if we go back and look at our window, we'll see that it has changed those IDs. So right now, if I go down in face mode and go here, polygon material IDs. So right now, select material ID 1 and it selects all the teak wood. If I select material ID 2, it selects the glass. Now I could apply a third material if I want by just adding another one and then changing this face to number 3, set ID to 3, and then putting a new material in here. So I don't really want to do that, but that's how you do it. So those sub-object materials end up being pretty important. You use them kind of all the time if you've got a lot of poly modeling in your scene. Now if you modeled it all as splines and they're all separate objects, which again I don't think is the easiest way to do things, but we do have an example of that here. Oh no, I combined them to edit polys. Forget it. I just can't stand doing it the least efficient way. I want to turn them into polys so I can just stretch them and move them and scale them however I want. So anyway, we can reuse that same material. So for example here, let me just show you real quick. You can put it onto this door. Obviously it's not right yet, but if we go into face mode and all our glass ones are already selected, so let's change that to a material ID of 2, like that, and bada bing bada boom, it turns into glass because it's got this multi sub-object material. Now that obviously needs a map, a UVW map, like this, box, real world. Because it's real world, we don't have to set it individually for each one. We just turn on that real world and that teak is always going to be the right size. And because it's instance, it goes right over here. So I can just go through and start doing this on all my windows and doors. But, oh, here's an example here of the splines. So here we can just take a glass, put it right on, take the teak, put it right on. Oh! Got something messed up there. Oh, I got 2 separate objects there. We don't want that. Glad I found it. So we don't need that guy anymore. And sloppy modeling. Okay. Anyway, so we can still just go through all these just like this. This one's going to be instance all over the place too. Set that to 2, just like that. Put that map on there. Anyway, you get the idea. And that's how we'll do this for everything. But we really got to get into making some more complex materials with some really nice maps, some really complex maps, lots of maps in different channels, all that kind of stuff. So that'll be the next video. And we'll start putting materials on this whole scene and start getting some nice renderings spitting out of this thing. So stay tuned.